It was a magical season in 1963 as the National Football League was turned on its head. Two-time defending champion Green Bay Packers had a great season, but one of their rivals overcame even them that year. It's up for a surprise, and we have our historian friend Tom Pollin joining us to tell us all about it in just a moment.
This is the Pigskin Daily History Dispatch, a podcast that covers the anniversaries of American football events throughout history. Your host, Darin Hayes, is podcasting from America's North Shore to bring you the memories of the gridiron, one day at a time.
Hello, my football friends. This is Darin Hayes of pigskindispatch.com. Welcome once again to the Pig Pen, your portal to positive football history, and welcome to our edition of our NFL championship games before the Super Bowl. And gosh, we are having a great time learning a lot about the early National Football League, the championship games, the players, the teams, and the coaches. Just some tremendous names that have been discussed here. And as always, we have a guest historian from the team that won the National Football League championship that year. It's the 1963 season, and we have Tom Pollin here to join us. Tom, welcome to the Pig Pen.
Oh, thanks a lot, Darin. It's great to be here. It's an exciting series, so I'm thrilled to be a part of it.
Yeah, Tom, since you're a first-time guest here on our show, I know you've been on a couple of the other Sports History Network shows, and you're in the works of having your own show here real soon. Why
Yeah.
don't you tell our listeners here in the Pig Pen a little bit about yourself and your background?
Well, I've been a sports fan all my life. I've read extensively about sports history, baseball and football especially. Been a Bears fan all my life, and which for the most part can be very frustrating. But yeah, I guess all fans can say that about their teams, though it's one time or another. Um, but I've always enjoyed Bears football and watching the NFL, and started writing about it in 2011, and have been doing that ever since. And um, spent some time doing a podcast too with Atlanta Sports Unlimited, talking quite a bit about the Atlanta Falcons the last four seasons. So it's been
Nice.
very varied, but it's a lot of fun to do these kind of things. I
Yeah,
enjoy them.
yeah, most definitely. And we are so glad to have you. Especially your extensive writing on the Bears and the National Football League in general with the Falcons and the Bears. So that's great. It makes you very well qualified to talk about this 1963 season and your Chicago Bears, the champions of that league. So what can you tell us about the 1963 landscape of the National Football League?
Well, it was it's kind of a strange year because it started out with two of the biggest stars getting suspended for that season. Um, with Alex Karras of the Lions and Paul Hornung of the Green Bay Packers, for betting on football games and so associating with known gamblers. Um, it was rough, but Pete Rozelle did what he felt he had to do to maintain the integrity of the league. Um, they had the 1919 Chicago Black Sox scandal to kind of use as a model for what gambling could do to a professional sports league. So, but Rozelle did what he had to do. And it hurt the Packers because the Packers were on a roll as NFL champions. They had won in 61 and 62 over the New York Giants. Giants were getting their third attempt at it, this time against the Bears. But it was kind of a breaking, it kind of broke the streak that Lombardi had going with that Packers team, because they lost the title game in 1960 to the Eagles and then dominated the Giants for 2 years and dominated the NFL. I mean, it was the start of one of the greatest dynasties in NFL history. So, but losing Hornung did hurt the Packers that year. With the Bears, so-so offense. It seems like we always say that about the Bears. Um, a so-so offense, but incredible defense. So that's the way it went. Yeah, George Halas was head coach again, and they had an outstanding defensive head coach, George Allen, who went on to head coach for the Rams and Washington Redskins. But Halas wanted George Allen to coach the Bears. He was grooming him to take his place as the head coach of the Bears. And Allen, of course, left to head coach the Los Angeles Rams, and was a huge split between Halas and Allen from then on. It was amazing what that did. Killed their relationship. But in 1963, having Allen as their defensive coordinator, the Bears, um, I think at the time it was a record as far as points allowed. It was amazing. They had 5 first team All Pros, 1 second team All Pro. So just an incredible defense to make up for the fact that the offense was a little questionable.
Yeah,
But
I mean, it's tremendous. Like when you're talking about the Packers falling off, the Packers fell off to an 11-2-1 record,
yes,
and it wasn't good enough to win because Chicago was 11-1-2.
yeah,
Just one loss difference, or tie difference, basically. A tie turned into a loss. And, the Bears are in the championship game because in that era, you had the top teams from each division play
yeah,
for the championship. And actually, the Giants didn't have an easy time of it either because
nope,
the Cleveland Browns were 10-4. The Giants are 11-3. So both of them just narrowly winning out their respective
yeah.
conferences to make the championship game.
Well, the main thing with the Giants, they had an incredible offense with Y.A. Tittle at quarterback, um, who is trying desperately for his a NFL championship game win to finally win a championship. Spent years as the quarterback for the San Francisco 49ers. But, the Giants had a then NFL record points, scored that year. And um, not just points allowed, 448 points, which was just unbelievable for a 14-game season.
Yeah.
And yeah, and remember, it was 14 games. That's all you got. So,
Yeah. They had a really a big flurry of stars, just like the Bears did, offensively,
yeah,
besides Y.A. Tittle, he's throwing to Gifford and Del Schaffner, Frank
right.
Gifford and Del Schaffner. He has Joe Walton as a tight end, Hugh McElhaney as a running back,
Yeah,
Alex Webster. They were very potent
they
offensively, like
were.
you said, and it's really a great matchup, them against that very stout Bears defense.
Yeah. And that's what a lot of people were looking forward to. And I think Tittle, was a bit favored because I think a lot of NFL fans wanted to see him get his championship. He had been, shut down by the Packers 2 straight years, and always a popular player in New York too. When he, uh, not at first when he took over for Charlie Connerly, but as he led the Giants and had the Giants winning, was very popular in New York. And I know they were enthusiastic about seeing him finally winning an NFL championship. And and the Giants went into the game slightly favored. So, but it's tough to work against a defense the way the Bears did. He had defensive end Doug Atkins, who ended up in Hall of Fame. Linebacker Joe Fortunato, another Hall of Famer in Bill George, and 2 safeties in Richie Pettibone and Rosie Taylor. Just incredible talent the Bears put on the field on defense. So, it was always going to be tough for Tittle in this game, but the uh, I forget the phrase now. I'm not even going to try and remember, but kind of the irresistible force going against the immovable object. It's the way that went together.
Yeah.
But
It's amazing that you say the Bears were the underdogs going in. Giants were favored against an 11-1 team.
yeah,
This team, the Bears only lost once all season, and they are the underdogs in this championship game. That sort of blows my mind.
I know it really did. But as I said, I think some of that had to do with the fact that um, the kind of hearts and minds were going for Tittle in that game. Um, but yeah, it is. It's very surprising that the Bears went into that game slight underdogs. But the way Tittle led that offense, it's do you look at it a little surprising? It just up. The Giants were favored by 1 point. So, against that Bears team in Wrigley Field, on the Bears turf.
Yeah,
So,
I guess we've been talking about these championship games, and actually we haven't talked about the Bears since what the 46th season. It's the last time that they were in a championship game, where, like you said,
1956.
oh, 56. I'm sorry, you're
Yeah,
right,
they hadn't
56 they were
won
in.
since 46.
That's right. Okay. So they were, but it's been one time in the last 2 decades that they've been in where the Giants had three straight seasons. So maybe that, like you say, like you're alluding to, people are saying, okay, this is their time. Why Tittle's taking them there 3 times. They lost twice to the Packers. They've had this Bears team that hasn't been there in forever. And, who cares if they're 11-1? It's a Giant season. So yeah, the odds makers are saying, okay, we're going this way with our odds.
Yeah, yeah. So again, yeah, it's a little surprising, but in playing in the Bears' home at Wrigley Field, I guess the Bears had an opportunity to play that game at Soldier Field, but Halas didn't want to. I think Pete Rozelle wanted the Bears to play that game at Soldier Field because of the lights and the increased seating capacity. But Halas turned them down, said, no, we are playing in our home ballpark, and that's the way it is. So ended up being played at Wrigley Field, and a lot of Chicago fans don't even realize or don't remember that the Bears played for years at Wrigley Field. It was a dual home. So
Yeah, I've always found that amazing. You have Soldier Field, this giant behemoth in downtown, Chicago. Very, close to transportation. Since the
right,
1930s, and they're playing the college all-star game there
yeah,
every late summer, I guess. Getting a great draw there. But the
right,
Bears don't play there for decades. It's not their home field. It's
right.
amazing.
Yeah, it's surprising. Well, eventually they had to move there in 1970, but up to that time, yeah, it was very surprising that they hadn't played at Soldier Field before. But that's goes into the politics of how things work in Chicago, and I don't really think we need to go there, but
Right, right. And so since 1970, Bears have been there, and looks like maybe things might be changing here soon. But
yeah,
I think that's still up in the air at the time we're recording this. I don't think we have
right.
a definitive answer where they're exactly going to be at. Somewhere in the
Yeah.
Chicagoland area.
Well, a little bit northwest in Arlington Heights, they're talking about they bought the Arlington Heights racetrack site, toward now the track, which was devastating because it was a historic track in the nation, in the country. Um, Ran the Arlington Million there for a long time, and it was one of the top racetracks in the country as far as horse race fans know that. And tore it down and the Bears bought that land, and it is an extensive plot of land that they have out there, and a lot they can do with it. And it's looking like the stadium's going to go there. So, and you have half of Chicago saying no, half of Chicago saying let's get it over with and do it. So it's crazy. Chicagoans can never agree on anything. So
Yeah, that's why you always have we had two NFL franchises for many, many years and two baseball teams forever. And
yeah, right.
it's amazing how that
Yeah,
works.
but with the baseball teams, you can't be a fan of one and being a fan of the other. You gotta be fan of one or the other. And then when football season starts, everybody comes together to be a Bears fan.
There you go.
That's
And
the way it
the
works.
Blackhawks and the Bulls. So
Yep,
you got that unity too. So
right.
hey, so I guess going into the 63 championship game, okay, we just talked about it. You have these two very formidable rosters, coming at each other, and we're playing in Chicago. What kind of weather are we having on game day?
We are freezing. We are, yeah, it
Man,
is terrible.
expect nothing better than that in December in Chicago, as we've seen
Yeah,
in many of these
exactly.
championship games over the years.
11 degrees at game time.
Whew.
They worked hard, did everything they could to try and keep that field warm, keep it from freezing over. But once they took all the hay and the heaters and the tarps off the field, it froze right over. There was nothing they could do. And, which made it a little tougher on the Giants as far as being able to run their offense. But yeah, it's kind of what you would expect in December for a NFL championship game. That's what you get. But yeah, was too bad for the Giants. But um, as the game started, it seemed like both teams were kind of feeling each other out. The Giants got off to a first score, Tittle to Frank Gifford. And then one of the big praise of the game was not Kittle to Frank Gifford, but uh, Larry Morris going down and hit Tittle in the knee.
Hmm.
And he had, and from what Tittle said later, that one wasn't too bad, but it was a rough hit. It was tough to take. So that was turned out to be one of the keys of the game later, because near the end of the first half, Morris hit Tittle again in that same knee. And that was the big injury for Tittle. Affected his ability to play quarterback the rest of the game. And it was kind of rough. But Tittle had already thrown a couple of interceptions before that. It's amazing. Tittle threw 14 interceptions all season. The Bears picked him off 5 times in that game.
Wow.
Yeah, 5 interceptions. So
And nowadays you throw five interceptions in a two-game span, it's career ending.
yes, it is right. Um, but again, that Bears secondary was so good that Del Schaffner went 0 for 5 as far as receptions. He, you know, trying to face Pettibone and Rosie Taylor. They just completely shut that New York passing game down. And that's one of the things. Schaffner did drop a touchdown pass in that game,
Hmm.
probably because of the cold, but it prevented another, Giants touchdown, which the way the Bears offense operated and the way the temperature was in that game might have been a decider for the Giants. Um, it was rough, but the Bears kind of went through that season. They rarely turned the ball over. Led the NFL on offense and turnovers. And probably one of the reasons why the offense worked. They were 10th in scoring, but didn't turn the ball over on offense. So, the one thing that saved that offense and helped that defense out a lot. So, and they did fumble twice in this game, but Uh, the Giants had 7 turnovers in the
Oof.
game, 5 interceptions, 2 fumbles.
And
But
that's amazing that the game stayed as close as it did. So who
yeah,
did the Chicago scoring?
Billy Wade, the quarterback, uh, got the 2 Bears touchdowns, both on quarterback sneaks, both in short range. The Bears tied the game 7-7 in the first, in the first quarter, and stayed tied until late in the second half when um, the Giants were finally able to move the ball down into Bears territory. I think they made it to the Bears 3 yard line before they had to incompletions by Tittle forced them to kick a field goal and gave them a 10-7 lead. But again, just before the half ended, Tittle took that second shot in the knee from Larry Morris and had to be helped off the field by Hugh McElhenney. Uh,
Hmm.
the Giants had finished the first half with their backup quarterback, who apparently in 7 plays gained 2 yards of offense. And at one point, Ellie Sherman, the coach of the Giants, punted on 3rd down because he didn't want to
Hmm.
give his quarterback another snap. That's how bad his backup was. So, um, but as McElhenney had to help Tittle off the field when he got his knee hurt and then, into the locker room, apparently Tittle had to take a couple of shots, Novocaine, cortisone, and get heavily bandaged just to play the second half.
Hmm.
But
Can you imagine that in 11-degree weather? You're already
oh,
aching. I mean, first of all, even perfectly healthy people going out in
yeah,
11 degrees, you're aching.
right.
You're gonna go out there after you've taken a pounding. You're gonna go back out there. Oh, that's some bravery there.
I can't even think, I don't even want to imagine it. Even when I was old enough to go out and do something like that in 11-degree weather, I didn't want to do that in 11-degree weather. It's just, it's terrible. It's horrible. But Tittle was a warrior. He always was. Um, and that's one of the reasons why he was so popular with the 49ers and then with the Giants. He would do anything possible, and he knew without him the Giants had no chance. So because that backup quarterback was not going to move the football. Um, so he got heavily bandaged, did everything he could, but apparently from reports he was throwing off his back foot most of the second half. And we know that's, fundamentally horrible for a quarterback to be thrown off his back foot. He couldn't plant.
It may lead to 5 interceptions in a game, right?
Yeah, right. Um, but, he was doing everything he could to be on the field. And that was one of the problems because the big play of the game in the third quarter, um, he was trying to throw a screen pass. And Ed Obradovich, the Bears defensive end, came through the line and intercepted the screen pass.
Hmm.
Maybe if Tittle was healthy, he gets a little more zip on that pass. Um, it doesn't float, but Obradovich was able to get his hands on it and return the ball down to the Giants 14. So a 24-yard interception return. And that's what set up the Bears for their final touchdown. Um, they were at 3rd and 10, hadn't moved the ball, or I think 3rd and 8, moved the ball 2 yards. And then Wade completed a pass to Mike Ditka, tight end, and Ditka carried the ball down to the 1 yard line. And that set up Billy Wade's quarterback sneak for the touchdown, and the Bears took that 14-10 lead.
Hmm. It's really fortunate, I guess, the Bears eventually scored, but it's unbelievable that a screen pass that's picked off doesn't go for a pick six,
Yeah,
because everybody's letting the defense run through. So you definitely have more defenders back in that area than you do offensive guys that can make a tackle after a turnover like that. So, uh,
yeah.
He must have been
Well,
running with like a refrigerator on his back or
yeah.
something after picking off that pass. Yeah.
Well, Obradovic wasn't particularly fast. He was big, but yeah, definitely not fast. Uh, and
I'm sure he didn't
Obradovic had
take
a great,
he probably didn't take any ribbing in the locker room after, I'm sure.
yeah, right. What do you think, Ed? You couldn't get that ball in the end zone for crying out
Right.
loud.
Right. Yeah.
But he was brought down by this, one of the um, Giants running backs was like half his size and finally, dragged down. But um, yeah, it was really something. That was this big play of the game. That was the key play. That was everything. Because again, that cold, it gets harder to move the football the more you're out there. And Tittle, the more he was out there, the more struggles he was having.
Yeah, so and then that's it for the scoring, right? For the game. That's
Yeah.
that after that Bears touchdown, and there's nothing in the fourth quarter. Was there any like late drives or anything that maybe the Giants had some hope at the end?
Yeah, there was a 2-minute drive where Tittle was able to move the ball down to the Bears 40. But that's as far as he got. He made one last attempt to try to find Schaffner in the end zone. And you got to realize Tittle was great at throwing long passes. Uh, he was great doing it for the 49ers. Uh, well, and I forget the 49ers receiver's name right now. Created this alley oop um, where Tittle would throw it up high in the end zone and go up and get it. And for the touchdown, it was a great play for the 49ers. Tittle loved throwing the long ball, but overthrew Schaffner in the end zone. And Pettibone was in position and made the interception for the second to final play. Wade uh, kind of, well, in that these days it would be take a knee, but in those days, I guess Wade had to kind of go down in the dirt to
Hmm, hmm.
to finish the game. But you know, again, if Tittle was not injured, how would that play? How would that have played out?
Or if Schaffner doesn't drop that earlier,
If Schaffner doesn't
touchdown
drop the
pass,
early touchdown, yeah,
that changes the complexion of the game also.
sure does.
Yeah.
Because the Bears with the you know 10th ranked 10th in points allowed that season, were not going to come back from a big deficit. The fact that they were down 10-7 probably had fans in the stands wondering if they were able to come back or not. Uh, but again, it was up to the defense to make that big play. And that's how the Bears did business all year, was off the backs of their defense.
And I guess if you think about it, they did do their job. 7 turnovers. That's, probably more than 50% of the drives that
Yeah,
that the other team had, the Giants had in this whole game. That's quite a bit
yeah,
in a game. And if you're only losing by 4 points and giving up 7 turnovers, that's
that's
really an
huge.
anomaly.
Yeah. Yeah, I looked for a drive chart online. I wanted to see how each drive broke down, but I couldn't find anything. And it's hard to find stats for NFL. The farther back you go, the harder it is to find these things. Um,
Yeah, I
but
don't. I'm not seeing one either. I was just going through real quick and trying to find it. Yeah, I
yeah,
don't see
yeah.
it, but that would be
Last night
amazing
I
to see
made
how
it.
many
I
drives there
made a
were.
search for it, and normally Pro Football Reference will give you some great stuff to, as far as information, as far as giving you even the number of drives and how they turned out. But for this game, they weren't didn't even have that, so
Hmm.
it was a little disappointing. But again, you hit the main points of the game. The fact that um, that Bears defense did rise up, and I mean, you were able to make hits on a quarterback that you are not allowed to make today. Would have been penalized very big for Morris going after Tittle's knee. But
Yeah.
but that was the game then. That's how they did it. You
Right. It was rough and tumble back then, that's for
Yeah.
sure. And you had
And
to, yeah,
Morris did go after his knee. He wanted to try and bring him down, with his knee. And that was just how it went, how you did it.
that was part of the game back then, part of the strategy
So,
you had to deal with. Yeah,
yeah.
devastating when you have a knee injury back then. It's not, I think they called ACL and MCL injuries knee injuries back, all the way through the
Right.
1970s. We never heard of ACL and
You
MCL
never
till
had ACL and
recently.
MCL. Well,
Yeah.
yeah, you did. But
But the common man, football fan, did not know what it was. Is a knee injury, is an ankle, is a leg, and
right,
that's about it.
exactly.
And usually those could be career ending. Everybody has a knee injury. Oh, he busted up his knee. He's done. That's
Well, you look at Gale Sayers,
right.
um, who actually did come back from having ligaments repaired in his knee, and won a rushing title after coming back from knee surgery. But these days, Gale Sayers would have played for years afterwards and would have come back as good as new. In those days, Gale Sayers came back, but he didn't. He wasn't the. He didn't have the speed, didn't have the elusiveness that he had before injuring his knee.
Yeah, I
Uh,
guess maybe a good analogy of that or comparison of that is maybe like Adrian Peterson, how he had setting the league on fire like Sayers did, knee injury. Okay, maybe one or maybe a bad year. I mean, Peterson really came back really quickly from his
yeah,
injury, but the year after that, he was on fire again.
yeah, exactly. So it's just amazing what you can do medically to help a player recover from these kind of things. Um, it just didn't happen then. Yeah, it's Tommy John surgery. Nobody ever knew what a Tommy John surgery was until Tommy John had the surgery.
Right,
Um,
right.
but you had a sore arm, and that was it. You had a sore arm. There was nothing you could do about it. So
Yeah.
yeah, sports medicine has really um, just risen by leaps and bounds, grown by leaps and bounds ever since those days.
And
Um,
that really puts more emphasis on what Y.A. Tittle did. Probably could have been out for the game or out for a longer period of
yeah,
time, but really toughed it out, bandaged up in 11-degree weather and goes out there and braves it out to try to lead his team back and still throwing passes and giving his team a chance and only losing by 4. So, tremendous job by Y.A. Tittle and
yeah,
for you, Tom, for describing this game, the season, and both of these clubs that really legendary players on both sides.
yeah. And George Allen did get the game ball for that win. Players awarded him the game ball. And reminds you of like the '85 Bears when they won Super Bowl 20. Buddy Ryan had that, was just immensely loved by the defense. They carried him off the field while the offense carried
Mhm.
Ditka off the field. So, that shows you how defense um, kind of defines the Bears over the course of their franchise history. Um, that, they were able to, you know, rely on that defense, on a legendary defense then, legendary defense in '85, and they still play strong defense. So just the definition of that team.
Yeah, tremendous. The old adage is true in this case. Defense wins championships, and that was the
Yeah.
way it worked for many years in the National Football League. So,
And you look at the Packers, um, they had a very good defense that year too. They were second in points allowed.
hmm.
They had a big, it's amazing how big a hole in their offense was created when Hornung was out for that year. Um, that it they had destroyed the Bears in both their meetings in 1962. The Bears scored 7 points against them in 2 games, but 63, it was just enough for the Bears to get over the hump, to defeat the Packers, slip past them for that Western Conference title. So it shows you what that Packer dynasty could have been if they had managed in 63 to continue their dominance and play the Giants in a third NFL title game. And in the Super Bowl era, won the first two NFL title games to go against the AFC champions. So
Yeah.
it's amazing how it just comes out that that one suspension that really hurt the Packers, and the Bears slipped in and did everything possible and managed to come out on top for that season. And
Yeah.
kind of last hurrah for George Halas too.
Yeah, right. And he went on to have some more success. Never really got those titles with the Rams and Redskins, which we've talked about on other episodes of this with guests. But yeah, definitely was his chance to get his ring, and good signs for things for other teams to come, that he would be bringing some winning ways to their franchises as well.
Yep, exactly.
But Tom, you did a tremendous job here. We really appreciate you coming on here and sharing the 63 season, being a part of our series on the pre-Super Bowl NFL championships that we're covering here in 2025. And we really look forward to getting today was getting a taste of what your upcoming podcast is going to be. I know yet untitled, yet described, but we really look forward to hearing here.
Working on that. So, it's coming.
Yeah. So we thank you again for your research and your sharing today of this piece of NFL history.
Oh, I appreciate it. It was great to be here. Love talking NFL history anytime, and the Bears and being on with you. This, great show, and I'm looking forward to catching up with more of your shows on these NFL title games.
That's all the football history we have today, folks. Join us back tomorrow for more of your football history. We invite you to check out our website, pigskindispatch.com, not only to see the daily football history, but to experience positive football with our many articles on the good people of the game, as well as our own football comic strip, Cleat Marks Comics. Pigskindispatch.com is also on social media outlets, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and don't forget the Pigskin Dispatch YouTube channel to get all of your positive football news and history. Special thanks to the talents of Mike and Gene Monroe, as well as Jason Neff for letting us use their music during our podcast.
This podcast is part of the Sports History Network, your headquarters for the yesteryear of your favorite sport. You can learn more at sportshistorynetwork.com.